This is a 30-inch door and it measures to about 29 3/4. So half of that, where you're going to want to make a mark, is going to be 14 7/8. I usually go about 7.5 inches on a door. So what I have to do is do a little bit of math there. 14 7/8 minus, if I'm going to go 7.5, it's got to be 3 3/4. So I'll subtract 3 3/4 from that, which is going to be, so now I've got my width marked on the door. I'm going to double check that, make sure that's about 7.5. You know, again, if it's not exact, your cats probably are not going to care. I'm certain that mine won't. Now we got to figure out how high it's going to be. I usually go 10 inches, so I take my square and I put it on the bottom of the door like this to make sure, and you should have your inch marks on here. Now this is going to cut into the contour of this door, and that's okay. We'll get to that in a little bit. So there we have that, and then my 10-inch mark that I made here and here, you simply take your square and you lay across those, and then you just draw your line. And what I'll do in a second is I'll pull this square away so that you can see the rough end for the cutout. Put your saw on there. Cut. On the third cut, what we're going to do is we're going to curve into it a little bit and not worry about this corner for the first part. And in case you guys are wondering, the way that you line it up is you just get a long enough saw blade and it goes through both sides of it. So you're making both cuts. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to curve through there and then make that cut. And at this point, this is going to fall out. Then we have this little piece over here. All you do is just turn the saw the other way, come back and cut that corner out. So once again, 1.5 inches. It doesn't really matter what order you do this in. 1.5 inches. And if you make a mistake on this, it's not going to be that huge of a problem. If you notice in the beginning of the video, I show putty. Putty can cover up a lot of mistakes. That's why I make sure I have it around, because I'm not the world's best carpenter. But where that contour ends is a great place to cut. It's roughly right there, right there, right there, 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 there. So that's going to be the next step, is cutting that out. And we'll take the saw, and we'll cut that out. Now what we have those two pieces that I've cut, and those are just going to slide inside the door, and they're going to sit right there. At this point, you're probably seeing how all of this actually goes together. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure the distance between those. And again, this has to be a little bit more accurate than what we were before. Now we're back on the other end where we were. We take that piece and we sit that in there. I don't want to extra on the end just for some wiggle room. But I'm going to sit this right here and get that up against that. And this is a 45-degree angle, so we're just going to mark that. This is both sides with all the trim on it. The edge is cut off again. That doesn't quite line up, doesn't matter. You've got a little bit of a gap right here and a little bit of a gap right here. That's not exactly perfect, but again, you can fix that with putty. What we're going to do is we're going to putty this edge, and plus on these corners over here where you've got that gap, we're just going to fill that in with putty. And then we'll also put a little bit of putty on these edges, which we'll sand later. And we'll have to do that on both sides of the door.
Okay.
But once that's done, that will be the door complete. So the next thing we're going to do is move on to putty. I tend to just buy the powder stuff because it's a little bit less expensive. You get a little bit more of it, and you can set your own consistency on it. If you just want to use standard drywall mud, that's fine too. But you can always go back and put more in. A little bit of a softer appearance.
It probably doesn't hurt the cat.
You know, again, it's more work to sand, but if you're not a professional at this, and I certainly am not a professional, add in a little more. Fill that a little more. Start sanding.
Cool.
It paints really nicely and it sands very smooth.